Welcome to episode 29 of Becoming MindStrong. And today we're talking about habits, which is a topic we've talked about before, but we're really digging into what it means to train our mind to support habits. And this is a conversation when we talk about mindset, when we talk about the power of positive thinking, it's so easy to write it off as rainbows and glitter and unicorns, as you've heard me say a million times. But the truth is that this is not about, I shouldn't say this, I should be more positive. This is literally about wirings inside our brain. This is about neuroscience. So today we're going to dig deep into what it actually takes to build habits that stick and what that means from a mindset perspective. Check it out. So if you've hung out with me before, you know that I am all about all things mindset. I mean, my company is called MindStrong for goodness sake. And that is not a coincidence. You may have heard me use the example of the lottery winner before, right? There's a statistic that says something like 70% of lottery winners blow their earnings within the first 5 years. And that's not a coincidence. If you hold a deep-rooted belief that money makes you selfish, that money is the root of all evil, having more zeros in your bank account isn't doing anything except giving you more cash to get rid of as quickly as possible to get back to that level of homeostasis, to get back to a life that goes hand in hand with your belief system. So when we take a step back and we talk about health and fitness, whether it's nutrition, whether it's workouts, whether it's about the way our body looks, whether it's about our energy, we have to talk about mindset. Right? Because the truth is we are pleasure-seeking creatures who are always looking to get back to homeostasis. We're always looking to get back to our comfort zone. And if our comfort zone, even if we can sit here and say, well, I'm super uncomfortable being overweight, if that's where you've lived all your whole life, guess what? That is your comfort zone. So it's not enough to do the nutrition. It's not enough to do the workouts. We absolutely have to be addressing our mindset along with this. Now, what we're going to focus on today is mindset from the standpoint of habits. And here's why this is such a huge deal. And this is a conversation I could talk about all day, every day. The you that exists right now in every single area of your life, whether we're talking about health and fitness, nutrition, workouts, business, finances, your relationship, pick a topic. The you that exists right now is 1000% a result of the habits that you have, right? If you're in the habit of saving 10% of your paycheck right now, your financial situation reflects that. If you're in the habit of tracking your macros, your nutrition reflects that. If you're in the habit of going from work to your couch every day, your body type and your energy is reflecting that. Our brains, you've heard me say this before, if you've hung out with me before, our brains are these powerhouses capable of incredible things. But left up to its own device, your brain is lazy. Your brain is always going to choose the path of least resistance. And to it, the path of least resistance is a habit, right? There's a reason we can wake up in the morning and brush our teeth without thinking about it because it's a habit. We have done that motion so many times that it's not a decision. We don't wake up and say, what should I do right now? I guess I'll go to the bathroom and maybe grab this toothbrush, maybe put this toothpaste on here. Should I hold it with my left hand or my right hand? Which corner of my mouth should I start? We don't think about any of that. Because what has happened inside our brain is there is a literal neural connection between waking up, brushing our teeth, which hand we're holding the toothbrush, which section of our mouth we're brushing first. It's all autopilot. And in every area of our life, our brain wants that as much as possible. So whether we're conscious of it or not, our brain is always forming habits. Now, for some things, that's fantastic, right? I personally love that I'm in the habit of brushing my teeth, and I hope that you are as well. But there's other areas of our life, and this is kind of the scary part if we're not conscious of it. Our brain is forming those habits without our conscious thought. Our brain is forming those neural connections. It's saying, hey, you know what? She goes every day from work to her couch. This seems like a habit. Let's do it on autopilot. And that's why we can look back at the end of a long day and be like, wow, I didn't even remember driving home. Because we don't think about it. Our brain has formed this neural connection between end of day work, get my butt to a couch, grab a pint of Ben and Jerry's. That's just what we do. There is a literal wiring in our brain that says this is what we do in a day. This is who we are. So that can be a little scary because if you take a second to identify some of the patterns in your life, we didn't even realize our brain was forming those habits. The good news is we can take control. And that's where I want to start this conversation about combining habits and mindset. Because what I hear from clients, from friends, from family, I catch myself doing it when I'm not making the conscious effort not to, because as we're going to talk about, that's what it takes is conscious effort, is so many of us fall into this pattern of what we should or shouldn't be doing, right? And this is something you've heard me talk about endlessly when it comes to health and fitness. But when it comes to mindset, this is something we hear all the time. I know I should think positively. I know I shouldn't say that. I know I should do X. I know I shouldn't do Y. And it seems that there is this belief when it comes to positive thinking that it's a switch that we flick, right? I should think positively. Like, I lost my job and my boyfriend just left me and I'm living paycheck to paycheck, but I should just think positively. And I love you. And if you can do it, that's great. But not only is that not realistic, that's not what the power of positive thinking means. It is not rainbows and glitters and unicorn and bullshitting yourself into, well, even if I feel like shit inside, let me just keep repeating these positive thoughts until hopefully I'll believe them as I'm crying into my pint of ice cream. That's not doing anything, right? Putting on a fake smile. And this is what I see most people do, putting on a fake smile and posting inspirational memes when really you're crying behind the scenes and feeling like shit about yourself. It's not doing anything. So we need to start with a mindset shift about mindset. How meta is that? We need to make a mindset shift about mindset. From now on, when you hear the term mindset, we are not talking about fluffy, feel-good things. We are talking about neuroscience. We are talking about connections in our brains. And this is why this is such an important distinction. To go back to the example I just used, let's say I am just not feeling it. Like, life is tough right now. I lost my job. I just went through a breakup. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Like, I feel stuck. I'm feeling in a rut. I'm not feeling my best self. If I sit here and I go on Instagram and I start posting all these inspirational memes, and every time someone asks me how I'm doing, I bullshit them. And I say, you know what? I'm great. I'm going to get through this. Everything's okay. But deep down, I do not feel that way. I'm just repeating it because that's what I think I quote unquote should. That's not doing anything. That is putting a tiny little Band-Aid strip on a gushing wound. Where we start to do the work is when we start to think about it from this standpoint of neuroscience. And here's what I mean by that. When you live down your rabbit hole, when you repeat thoughts over and over again, when you repeat actions over and over again, we've already established that's how your brain is forming habits, right? Going from work to your couch, you're forming a habit. Waking up, brushing your teeth, you're forming a habit. Your brain is forming neural connections. It can then fire without conscious thought, and that is a habit. So what happens to most of us when we're in this state where we lost our job and are going through a breakup, living paycheck to paycheck, is we ruminate. We sit there and we think the same thoughts over and over and over again. I'm never going to find someone who loves me. What the hell am I going to do? I'm going to be broke. I'm going to have to move back in with my parents. I'm going to be a joke. I'm almost 40 years old and I don't even know what I want to do with my career. Who am I kidding? We don't notice we're doing it, but we do it over and over and over again. And what is happening? Just like that toothbrush, just like that couch, what is happening every time we think that thought? Our neural connections are firing. Our brain is firing over those neural connections and cementing them over and over and over again. We are forming neural connections in our brain that believe those thoughts to be truth with a capital T. So here's where we need to make this change. When we start to talk about the power of mindset, the power of positive thinking, what we need to do is break the connection. What we need to do is form a new connection. It's not about putting a Band-Aid on a wound. It's about consciously choosing to break the pathway and form a new one. So let me give you an example. We'll go back to our original one. You're down the rabbit hole of, I'm going to have to move in with my parents. I'm 40 years old. No one's ever going to love me, blah, 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 whatever your story of choice is. Now, you have a few options. Option one is you go down the rabbit hole. You keep thinking the same thoughts. You keep feeling the same feelings that come with those thoughts, right? That we did an episode in the past about the thoughts, feelings, action, results loop. When you think a thought, it causes a chemical reaction in your body that we call feelings. Those feelings cause us to take or not take actions, and those actions determine our results. And it all starts with these thoughts. So you can choose to go down that rabbit hole, But we now know what's happening in our brain. We're firing, 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 strengthening those neural connections, making those thoughts a habit, making them who we are, who we believe we are. Option two is we can rainbows and unicorn our way through it. We can sit there and put on a smile and fake it and say, you know what? I'm great. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Like that lady in a movie whose head explodes. Do you think that's doing anything for those neural connections? Bullshitting your way through it? Do you think that you're interrupting the pattern in any way? Of course not. Those are words coming out of your mouth. You're not doing anything about those thoughts that are ruminating, right? You can sit there and talk to your boss and think what an ass he is while you're saying nice things to him. Your words and your thoughts don't have to match up, but we cannot train our brain if we're not matching, right? Sitting there saying positive things, posting positive memes does not do anything for the neuroscience of who we are. So option three is where we need to put in the work. We need to understand that this is not about, oh, the power of positive thinking. Let me say positive things. No, the work for us is to pause, is to recognize, wait a second, I feel myself going down the rabbit hole. And it is not just about this moment. Let's be super clear about that. The work that you're choosing to do right now is not because in this moment you don't want to have that one thought. The work is because the more we ruminate on that thought, the more we cement that neural pathway, the more and deeper that becomes part of who we are. So you feel it happen and you pause and you breathe and you acknowledge it. You know what? I am ruminating right now. I hear the thoughts. I hear myself saying no one's going to love me. I hear myself saying that I'm going to be broke and move back in with my parents and I'm never going to be good. I hear it. And in this moment, I'm just choosing to break it. I don't have to do anything about it. I don't have to rewrite it. I don't have to do the work right now. I'm just breaking it. That's it. That is a perfect first step. You don't have to go journal about it. You don't have to go rewrite new empowering beliefs. You'll get there. Step one is just break the cycle, right? Because think about it. If we're building a sidewalk and you're laying cement, every time you lay that cement, you're making it thicker and thicker and thicker. But guess what? You may miss a layer. It might not be the be all end all. You may not have demolished the sidewalk, but you didn't make it any thicker. And that's what breaking the cycle does. Step one is just acknowledge it. Just notice, you know what I'm doing right now is just cementing. And I'm just going to acknowledge, boom, stop it, break the chain. That's it. Now, the work, when we actually talk about positive thinking, it is not sitting there in front of the mirror and saying, I am good enough. I am blah, 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 and repeating bullshit mantras. There's a time and place for mantras, but again, it is not about the words you're saying. It is about literally rewiring our brain. And that's when we can start to get into things like checking the facts. Is it a fact that the fact that I'm living paycheck to paycheck right now means that I'm going to be broke and moving back in with my parents and destined to never have the career of my dreams? Is all of that true because I just lost this one job and I'm currently living in paycheck to paycheck? No. Okay. So what could I do to make this situation a little bit better right now? Well, I could do X, Y, and Z. Cool. And if that doesn't work, what else could I do? I could do X, Y, and Z. And do you think 5 years from now, this is even going to be a blip on the radar? Well, probably not. And guess what? Now, through a process that we can really dig into, we can find that new belief, right? And for the purposes of this podcast, we're not going to get into the whole process, but here's the part I want you to focus on. Once you know that new belief, guess what? Now we consciously choose which habits to build. And that, my friend, is how we freaking change our life. Instead of the rabbit hole of rumination, I love that term, the rabbit hole of rumination, I just made that up and I'm going to use it forever. We can choose the beliefs that we now want to ruminate on, because ruminating on those new empowering beliefs, well, guess what we're doing? You already know the answer. Now we're cementing those neural connections. Now we're repeating them over and over and over again until they are truth with a capital T and they are just who we are. So what I want you to understand for today, and we will talk way more in depth, and if you hang out with me in my Facebook group, you know we talk about this all the time, is exercises you can actually do to identify these beliefs, to rewrite these beliefs, to cement the new ones. But for the purposes of our conversation today, what I want you to understand is this. The you that exists is 1,000% the result of your habits. Everything. Pick an area of life, look at your habits. You are where you are. I'm a huge fan of personal ownership. I'm a huge fan of the fact that it's not cheesy to say you can change your life. All you have to do is change your habits, right? Maybe that's easier said than done because it takes conscious thought and effort, but you are in control. You get to choose. The second thing we need to understand is that when we consciously choose to change our habits, it is not about sitting here and saying, I should think positively. I shouldn't do this. No, this is, for those of you who are very logic brain, this is a beautiful thing to understand, that our brains are super complex computers and they can be reprogrammed. They can be rewired. But step one is to understand that the bullshit of just saying everything's fine when it's not, or the bullshit of just saying I shouldn't think this way or I should think this way, that's not how you do it. The way we do it is by interrupting the cycle. Every single time you repeat an action, you are cementing that neural pathway. Every single time you repeat a belief, you are cementing that neural pathway. So step one is to just block it. It's just to catch it in its tracks. It's just to say, you know what? I'm going down the rabbit hole. That's it. I am going down the rabbit hole. I don't need to do the work in this moment if I don't want to. I don't have to journal about it if I don't want to. You can. That's going to be step two at some point. But for right now, in this moment, I am just going to acknowledge that it is going on, and I'm going to cut the tie. I'm going to stop the cement from pouring. I'm going to stop that neural pathway from cementing in any further. And from there, what we're going to talk about in the next episode is that missing piece, the part that I've kind of been glossing over in this one, of how do we start to choose which ones serve us best? Because then the part that we're skipping to for our purposes right now is, once you know what that missing piece is, you now know how to cement it in. Now it becomes a matter of literally training our brains. Right? If I show my muscles what to do enough times in a row, eventually mind muscle connection kicks in and it's just solidified. It just becomes a habit. And our brains work the same way. Once you have that new belief system, once you have that new thought process, now we ruminate on that over and over and over again. And we just keep pouring that cement until the new neural connection is formed, until it becomes our truth with a capital T, and until our new habits are formed. For way more on how to build new empowering habits, check out my new book, Becoming MindStrong, The Truth About Health, Fitness, and the Bullshit That's Holding You Back. You can find it on Amazon.com.